NSA broke into my Signal account, which I didn't know they could do.
How do you know the NSA broke into your Signal?
Because they admitted it. I got a call from somebody in Washington. This person said, you know, are you going to come to Washington anytime soon? Yeah, actually, I'm going to be up in a week. Meet me Sunday morning. So I go, and this person's like, are you planning a trip to go see Putin? And I was like, how would you know that? I haven't told anybody. I mean, anybody, not my brother, not my wife, nobody. How would you know that? Because NSA pulled your text with this other person you were texting. How did you know that?
Tucker Carlson is in Moscow right now interviewing Vladimir Putin.
Right.
The first American, I'll say, journalist to interview Putin since the war in Ukraine began. What does that tell you about Tucker Carlson and right-wing media and also Vladimir Putin?
Well, it shows me what I think we've all known. He's what's called a useful idiot. I mean, if you actually read translations of what's being said on Russian media, they make fun of him. I mean, he's like a puppy dog. You know, he somehow has, after having been fired from so many outlets in the United States, I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with a Russian outlet, because he is a useful idiot. He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview.
But deplatforming works, and it is important. And there you go. Good things can happen.
You know, it wasn't that long ago that even the most lefty propagandist, completely in the tank journalist saw the value in getting the interview, you know, getting anything and everything that they could that could possibly be important to their fellow citizens on the record. I mean, just a few examples. There's a million out there, but just a few. 1997, CNN interviewed Osama bin Laden. He had already attacked us twice up to that point, I believe. In 2003, while he was in defiance of UN treaties and resolutions and literally daring the West to war, CBS interviewed Saddam Hussein. 2005, Putin himself on 60 Minutes, Evil Putin. And again, 2021, NBC put Putin on. And now that Tucker Carlson's about to finally get the interview that probably had a part in ending his time at Fox, the corporate media, the liberals at large, basically the entire European Union are completely losing their minds. And why? What is different here? You know, what has changed? Is it the fact that they realize whatever Tucker asks him will probably not be filtered through whatever machinery leftists use to form their own questions, their own opinions? I mean, what is it exactly that they fear? I mean, just take a look at these real journalists losing their mind about actual journalism. That's all this is. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about apologists. We're not talking about anything other than journalism here. And if MAGA is your drinking game, you should probably sit this one out.
A massive shakeup in Kyiv coming as Putin is trying to court the MAGA GOP in the United States. In fact, one of the leaders of the MAGA GOP is in Moscow tonight. It's the man you see here with the MAGA leader Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, so obviously dishonest and filtered directly out of the gate. I mean, to hear CNN tell it, giving an interview to Tucker is an attempt to court the MAGA GOP in the United States. I mean, what a dangerous and stupid thing to say. And even worse, to actually believe it. I don't think these people believe it. They can't possibly believe it, but it's a horrible and very, very dangerous thing to say. I mean, you know, there's going to come a time, like many, many years from now, where I think we will actually be able to somehow measure how damaging to really the entire world Hillary's fake Russia boogeyman BS really was. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, liberals have taken her lazy and ridiculous Steele dossier and they found a way to parlay that into like a reality where everything that doesn't comport with their worldview, which is most things, is Putin. Putin, Putin, Putin. Anything or anyone that they want to damage, it's Putin. I mean, it's insane. I mean, that was 3 MAGAs in the first 20 seconds, by the way, if you're keeping track. I think she can do better.
Possibly there in Moscow to interview Putin. Definitely there as a Putin-supporting celebrity. He charged his phone, although they're knowing the details about the fact that it was during USB port may give him reason to think twice about all of this. But look at them talking about him like a celebrity. Everything he does on camera, breathlessly repeated. Now, it is unclear if an interview between Putin and Carlson will take place, but if it does, it gives Putin a chance to sit down with a big supporter.
it might be worth asking yourself, since it is getting pretty serious, what is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no. Vladimir Putin didn't do any of that.
I'll actually always remember watching that clip. I was standing in Ukraine 48 hours before the war began there. Well, Carlson then stood by Putin consistently all the way through. And that is why he can go to Moscow now without any fear of being summarily imprisoned. He's a hero. This was Putin's mouthpiece in the United States, somebody who had turned a blind eye to the atrocities committed by Putin because they were happening far away. Once vibrant towns turned to ruins, mass graves with dozens of bodies in the Kyiv suburbs, a theater full of innocent women and children sheltering, bombed, despite the giant world children written on the roof, more than 200,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed or injured. And tonight, Putin is trying to seize on the fact that Zelensky's military appears to be in turmoil, capitalizing on a moment of intense American political dysfunction.
Yeah, so maybe he's there to interview Putin, but he's definitely there as a Putin-supporting celebrity, whatever that means. These fucking people, man, they are serious. It is almost impossible to believe that they're serious, but I think they are. I mean, she mentioned Carlson being there without any fear of being summarily imprisoned. I mean, really, as long as you're not smuggling drugs into that country, any one of us should probably be fine. I mean, the truth is, if she and a lot of people like her had their way, Tucker would have more fear of being summarily imprisoned, as she put it, here in the United States. That is the world that they imagine. But so far, pretty remarkable stuff. Here's where I'm at, man. The corporate liberal media has things so incredibly backwards, and they know it. You know, they know that what Tucker is doing is just journalism. That is all it is. All it is journalism. I mean, listen to Tucker explaining it himself through the ever-honest lens of CNN and Abby Phillips. We'll give this a try.
We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Tucker Carlson is lying from the streets of Russia, no less.
Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin.
That's a lie. Serious news outlets, including CNN, have requested Putin to interview over and over again.
So hold on. So when CNN requests to interview Putin, this is serious journalism. But when Tucker Carlson does it with his decades and decades of experience, it's lying from the streets of Russia, no less, or her exact words. I mean, do you think that CNN faithful even pick up on this stuff anymore when they hear it?
Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice.
Another lie. Serious news outlets, including CNN, have covered and, of course, reported on Putin's words since this war began, including one of his baseless justifications for the invasion of Ukraine, which he initially claimed was to stop the Nazis.
Well, I'm not saying that that's true or not, or that's correct or not, but there are Nazis in Ukraine. In fact, when Zelensky visited Canadian Parliament, they literally scoured the entire country in order to present him with an actual living, breathing, original stock Nazi. Still not exactly clear why, but that actually happened.
First, because it's our job. We're in journalism.
Tucker Carlson is not a journalist, not even close. And his former employer in a court case actually agreed, quote, "The general tenor of the show should then inform a viewer that Carlson is not stating actual facts about the topics he discusses and is instead engaging in exaggeration and non-literal commentary."
Yeah, so this is a fact also having been argued by Rachel Maddow's show. You know, the left never wants to bring that up. And if or when Abby Phillips' show ever ran into a court battle, they, being an opinion show, which is exactly what this is, they would argue the exact same thing. I mean, and you know this is an opinion show because they can say things like Tucker Carlson is not a journalist. The man has literally worked and published for everyone, man, ranging from CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, and of course a bunch of right-leaning publications. Of course, those are the only ones that upset these guys. But they don't agree with him, so he's definitely not a journalist.
2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine.
For 2 years, real journalists have risked their lives to report from the ground each and every day in Russia and in Ukraine, including 2 U.S. journalists who are right now baselessly being detained by Vladimir Putin.
And truthfully, those people are doing very, very great and very, very brave work, but they're reporting on bombs falling. They're reporting on one side and one side only. You know, I'm not saying one side is more correct or one side is correct and one side's wrong. I'm just saying we're only getting one side. They haven't written about U.S. and NATO involvement in the lead up to this conflict. They haven't really written about the installation of pro-Western Zelensky. They haven't written about, Zelensky jailing priests, suspending democracy. They haven't written about any of this stuff. They haven't even written about the damn Nord Stream. How can you cover this whole thing and not even write about Nord Stream? I think we all know the answer to that. But anyway, that's as much as I can take from this real journalist. Let's hear it from Tucker himself.
We're in Moscow tonight. We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously. So we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances. And the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that as nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission. For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they have done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House. But they're trying anyway. Almost 3 years ago, the Biden administration illegally spied on our text messages and then leaked the contents to their servants in the news media. They did this in order to stop a Putin interview that we were planning. Last month, we're pretty certain they did exactly the same thing once again. But this time, we came to Moscow anyway. We are not here because we love Vladimir Putin. We are here because we love the United States, and we want it to remain prosperous and free. We paid for this trip ourselves. We took no money from any government or group, nor are we charging people to see the interview. It is not behind a paywall. Anyone can watch the entire thing, shot live to tape and unedited, on our website, tuckercarlson.com. Elon Musk, to his great credit, has promised not to suppress or block this interview once we post it on his platform, X, and we're grateful for that. Western governments, by contrast, will certainly do their best to censor this video on other less principled platforms because that's what they do. They are afraid of information they can't control. But you have no reason to be afraid of it. We are not encouraging you to agree with what Putin may say in this interview, but we are urging you to watch it. You should know as much as you can, and then, like a free citizen and not a slave, you can decide for yourself. Thanks.
That is a pretty simple message. Don't be a slave and make up your own mind. But the media, of course, they don't want you making up their own mind. They want to be the guardians of what you know, and they want to be the final arbiters of what is or isn't true and who is or isn't a Putin puppet apologist. When Chuck Schumer can go on with these same media hacks who fear that what Tucker might ask and essentially say, if you don't make sure I get $118 billion in funding, I'm going to send your kids to war. He can go on there and no one makes a peep when he says something like that. But Tucker Carlson is about to ask some questions of Russia themselves about a war that is changing the entire face of the world. And these people completely lose their minds. But if you take those two things together, just those two things, it should confuse anyone that still has two brain cells to rub together. I mean, the best part is that it will all be available for anyone who wants to access it for free. And everyone should watch it. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll all learn something. Maybe Vladimir Putin himself will confirm to us that the only hope, the only way to save democracy in this entire world is to fund Ukraine and vote blue no matter who. I don't know. Maybe he'll say that. But that's just my take, guys. Let me know yours in the comments. If you haven't already, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.